Never thought I'd be a math problem. Welcome to the NBA. Yeah. You either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself be outgoing salary. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Little Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel and drop a like. Trying to hit 30K subs over here, so your subscription would be much appreciated. So we just had another pretty big trade go down, and there's a couple of smaller ones that I also have missed. So going to talk about this Norman Powell, John Collins swap, and then get into some small signings and deals as well, like the Cam Whitmore stuff. But we're primarily going to focus on this Norman Powell deal, where Norman Powell is being sent to the Miami Heat, with John Collins going to LA, and Kevin Love, Kyle Anderson, and a 2027 Clippers second round pick is headed to the Jazz. Now, this is instantly a kind of weird and confusing deal off the top because Norman Powell obviously just had a career year with the Clippers. He was pretty underwhelming in the playoffs, but nevertheless still a very valuable guy. He is older. Breaking out this late in your career can be kind of a bad time to do it, just because teams are hesitant and will especially feel like you were just kind of a one-hit wonder. And there are also big salary implications in this deal, which is unfortunately something that I am saying more and more when it comes to trades. It seems like very rarely these days are trades even made based on what is a good fit. Like, I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine. Really, it's just like, can you take my salary, please? We have way too much fucking money on this team. And that's exactly what happened here. By doing this move, the Clippers are freeing themselves of having to pay Powell long-term and affecting their cap in that long-term sense. And then also, it frees them up to have a bunch of cap space available for 2026, whether that ends up being used to actually sign someone or just the flexibility leads to other opportunities. One way or the other, that kind of financial flexibility can almost, and not even almost, it can be more valuable to you than a player of Norman Powell's caliber is. And for what it's worth, John Collins is also a pretty damn solid player. He had a really good year with Utah this previous season. He averaged 19 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal, and a block, 53% from the field, 58% from 2, which is technically the lowest of his career, but it's also on a higher volume than earlier on. And he's also got a higher volume of self-created buckets, I would imagine, on this Jazz team, even with Isaiah Collier being a really good playmaker. He shot 40% from 3 as well on 3.7 attempts, which is promising. I'm never really going to feel like John is a legit shooter, but he is at least good enough that in the regular season that can be a genuine source of offense, and hopefully it's something that could theoretically hold up in the playoffs. But of course, we have not seen John in the playoffs in 2 years in a row now. Last time he did shoot 34.5% on 5 3-point attempts per game, though, which is pretty good, but also terrible that he was taking more than half of his shots from 3. Really goes to show why he got off of the Hawks, because that is a terrible fit. But what is weird about it is I do wonder how the contrast with him and Zubats would work. Zubats is a more methodical guy, where John is more like he shoots a little bit and then he's a freak athlete. But yeah, his contract should be expiring. Yeah, it's $26 million. That's definitely going to be nice to get that off of the books. So I understand just purely from the salary perspective why the Clippers did this deal. I will say it kind of saddens me, but I don't know. The core element that I liked about that Clippers team was how much it was reminiscent of 2000s era basketball, where you have these guys who are like great at a few things individually and they make up for each other's weaknesses as a collective. But like, Zubats isn't a stretch big, nor is he some phenomenal playmaker, but he's a good finisher, he's a good rebounder, he's a good defender, so he checks those boxes. And Norman Powell isn't really much of a playmaker, but he's a great shooter and off-ball scorer, so that's how he contributes. James Harden doesn't score at the volume that he used to, but he's an all-time great playmaker. A lot of dudes in a very limited scope, in a way that is very contrary to modern basketball principles, but in a way that I enjoyed it. It was it gave character to the team. What's interesting, though, is that John Collins is closer to a traditional power forward than most in today's NBA. So I think you're actually still going to maintain that spirit, just in a different way, and maybe in a way that could be more clunky and frustrating. But just from a pure fit perspective and a salary perspective, I think the Clippers end up walking away with a W here. The fit is a little weird, but you still get a good player, not a consequential salary, free up a bunch of salary next year. So as much as I hate Norman Powell going because he was fun on this Clippers team, it was a good move for them. For the Miami Heat, they are desperate as fuck for some scoring, so being able to trade Kyle Anderson and Kevin Love to make that possible, well, that's a no-brainer. You get a guy who, yeah, maybe you don't feel comfortable paying him either, but he's still going to give you 20 points per game in this upcoming season. And honestly, I think that is a move that dramatically increases Miami's chances of being a playoff team this year, which is a testament to both how sparse the scoring on the Miami Heat is, as well as how bad the Eastern Conference is. That I'm like, yep, Norman Powell, that's your difference maker between being a playoff team or not. In the East, Norman Powell can absolutely be the difference between you making a playoffs or not. The Utah Jazz, their win in all of this is that they get a massive trade exception. I think you said it was about $26 million. Also, Kevin Love and Kyle Anderson are super easy to get rid of. Kyle Anderson's second year of his deal is non-guaranteed, so I think they'd only have to pay out a portion of that. So yeah, it makes sense for them. They are giving themselves further salary flexibility. So essentially, the Clippers get salary flexibility, the Jazz get salary flexibility, and the Heat get the actual really good player out of this equation. And they just take the guy who can be good right now. So Miami, I don't know really where they're going. There's a couple of different directions they could take that team, but they seem to want to ride the line of just being competitive enough all the time. And if that's their goal, then this is a good move. So honestly, kind of a good trade all around for all parties involved. The Clippers, I think, got worse for this upcoming season, but potentially got better for the next one. And again, this also could be a trade that is one that is followed by more moves that were enabled by this deal. So this could be something where we see more parts to it. Now, to move on beyond that trade, I'm just going to go through a couple of signings and a couple of trades. Ryan Rollins agrees to a 3-year, $12 million deal to return to the Bucks. He, as I understand it, is a player that has some shot creating ability on the perimeter, and obviously that is something the Bucks are going to be lacking this year. So good that they brought him back. Cam Whitmore goes to the Washington Wizards for 2 second-round picks. This is definitely a deal that a lot of people were like, what the hell? But Cam, I am skeptical that he is going to be a particularly good player because he is just the archetype of player that I always dislike, which is scorer that is not a great shooter or a great playmaker or a great defender. If you score as a driver and finisher on the break and as like a mid-range guy, and then you can kind of shoot threes, that player's just not going to be that valuable to you consistently. So Cam, I'm sure maybe they could have gotten more out of the guy. Maybe they could have actually gotten a dude who is a legit player, but you also could put those second-round picks paired with another big contract that you don't want to keep around and get somebody else. So it's not like those second-round picks just disappear and become completely invaluable or not valuable. Invaluable sounds like it's saying it's not valuable, but in fact, it means it's extremely valuable. But yeah, Cam Whitmore, I think he has upside. I think he has potential. I think this is a good deal for the Wizards. And I think it's fine for the Rockets because Whitmore was not a part of this team's future or present. And I just don't think he's going to be that great. I might be wrong. We'll see. But the Washington Wizards are not exactly the place to go to develop young talent. So bad sign for him in that case. He will get more opportunity than he ever has, though. So maybe he was a hidden gem. Mo Wagner returns on a 1-year, $5 million deal to the Magic. Nothing to say about that one. That's solid. There is. Okay, so Rudy has informed me. I did not see this yet. Apparently, I've never heard of this rule, but apparently in the NBA, if you sign 3 consecutive 1-year deals, you get a no trade clause on the 3rd year with the same team, obviously. Yeah, with the same team. So Mo Wagner and Jackson Hayes all have no trade clauses. That is fucking crazy. That is, wow. Yeah, the Jackson Hayes also returning to the Lakers. I mean, they're on such low salary that it's like not a big deal that you can't trade him. I don't think it's going to break anything, but it is. That's interesting. That's a weird amount of power to give to the type of guy who every year they're like, we'll bring you back, but we're not committing to the long term. But you are if you do it 3 years in a row, apparently. God damn, that's crazy. Dante Exum 1-year deal return to the Mavericks. That's a good deal. I think Dante is pretty good. Spencer Dinwiddie goes to the Charlotte Hornets. The only thing that I saw about that was funny to me is him like on a podcast saying like, if you're not one of the top of the line dudes, people are just going to forget about you. And then he went to the most forget about you franchise possible. Mike Brown, head coach of the New York Knicks. I think that's fine. I think that they should hopefully be able to replicate the defense of the past, and Mike Brown is a far more creative offensive coach than Tom Thibodeau. They have more weapons. I like that a lot. Trey Mann, 3-year, $24 million deal. This has the potential to be a steal for the Charlotte Hornets because I think Trey Mann is genuinely a pretty damn good microwave scorer, even if that's not the type of player that I always am a big fan of. In this limited capacity at that contract value, I definitely am a fan of it. So I like that deal for him. A big signing that I really wanted to go out of my way to highlight is Duncan Robinson agrees to a 3-year, $48 million deal. This happened like right after I recorded my day one signings reaction, and my understanding was that the Pistons had less money to work with than they actually did. I didn't know that they could bring in Duncan Robinson. So my understanding was that Karis LeVert would essentially be the Malik Beasley replacement, and that infuriated me, and I graded that signing very poorly as a result. In hindsight, in fact, what actually happened there is Karis LeVert is the Dennis Schroeder replacement, which I think is more of an upgrade than anything else. And Duncan Robinson is the Malik Beasley replacement. And yeah, you got it. You got one of the best movement shooters in the entire NBA, one of the best dudes whose entire job is to shoot the ball. You replaced Malik Beasley effectively, and Karis LeVert replaces Dennis Schroeder effectively. So I actually like the offseason that Detroit had a lot. So I changed my grade on that Karis thing. My bad there. Drew Eubanks signs a 1-year deal with the Kings. Okay, whatever. And Tim Hardaway Jr. goes to the Denver Nuggets. Also a big fan of that because he's one of those guys, when you're paying him a lot, don't feel great about it. When you're paying him the minimum, you do feel great about it. And then the last thing, Jay Huff got traded from the Memphis Grizzlies to the Indiana Pacers. And I believe you said it was a deal to free up salary so that they could get Jock Landale. I hate that. Terrible. Stupid. Fuck that. I hate you for that, Memphis. Jock Landale, boo. Jay Huff, yay. That's my analysis. I think Jay Huff is good, and I think Jock Landale is bad. I do not understand why you would make this choice. Is there some financial implication there? Like, Jay Huff wasn't making crazy money? Yeah, well, like, what the fuck was that? I did not understand that at all. It seems like a completely baffling decision to me. Maybe there's some secretly genius reason behind it, but as far as I can tell, it's stupid as hell. And for the Indiana Pacers, though I would not say that Jay Huff should be a starting center, I absolutely think he is too limited in his ability. He's not a very strong defensive player. At least offensively speaking, he can recreate a lot of what Miles Turner does because he's a good finisher and he's a good three-point shooter. He shot, I think, just under 40, or is it at 40? 40% from 3 attempts per game. That's fucking great. He is, for a 7-foot big man, that's excellent. He shoots the ball. He's also not a good rebounder, but yeah, Miles Turner was also not a good rebounder though. So I think for the Pacers, absolute steal. Did they even give up, like, what did they, second round pick? Just 1? 2 second-round picks? That, dude, they didn't have a center, and they got a guy who can do what Miles Turner can, like 60% for no amount of money. That is a great deal, and I don't know how next year is going to look, but I could see him being a player that really benefits a lot from a great playmaker. I would wager that his impact is even better when he's playing with Ja Morant. So next year, if he's still there, hopefully with Tyrese Halliburton, and hopefully Tyrese is the same player. I could see him actually being developed into a starting caliber big man. Not like a great one, but like someone who you feel comfortable enough knowing that the rest of your starters are as great as they are. I still think Indiana should ultimately look for a better center to start than Jay Huff. Again, for the sake of just plugging the hole, getting a guy who can do a pretty decent job for practically nothing. The Pacers did exactly that, and I don't know what the fuck is wrong with the Memphis Grizzlies. Fucking Jock Londale, who gives a shit about that? All right, that is it. That's my summary. I don't think we're going to need to bulk these anymore. We're probably going to get to the point where we're getting one-off trades every couple of days. But yeah, that's it. Goodbye.